This episode of Just the Tip-Sters is sponsored by Clean Spa Bath & Body. That's clean with a K. Cleanspa.com. Clean Spa. Prepare to smell delicious.
From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's Just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Put that down.
If you've got a tip for Melissa, a case you know more about than the police do, a story you just don't believe is true, but you need to make sure, the best way to punk a ufologist without having to rent an expensive alien costume, anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host, pounding the pavement, because that's what you do when you think a body's buried under it, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. Ufologist. I would have said UFOologist, but ufologist is great.
Yeah, that's what they call themselves.
Well, see, I don't know anything. We have friends who are very, very big in MUFON, which is not a Disney film about an Asian girl. It's MUFON, MUFON, MUFON.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's very big in the LA chapter, and Earl Grey, and ufologist is great. And I'm not going to give too much away, but our shared Halloween costumes this year do involve an alien type.
That's right.
Yeah. It's an alien-ish kind of thing, so that'll roll out. You know, Halloween is
roll out. Yes.
Why is that funny?
It will roll out.
Oh, okay.
Because you made it sound like we're introducing a new line of.
Oh yeah, of alien
yeah.
costumes. Yeah, no. But we roll out our Halloween extravaganza because Halloween's my jam, and I'm horribly competitive, and we win every year.
That is absolutely true.
Yeah, thank you. And that poor producer Mark is the person who has to put up with my shit.
I am just a rat in an experimental cage at Halloween.
You're exquisite. That you seriously are exquisite. At one point, he has been Bill Clinton as I was Monica Lewinsky when I had black hair and I had a navy blue dress and I just spilled some toothpaste when I was brushing my teeth in the morning.
Yeah.
We went to work all day wearing our outfits. That Mark's gift is making laminated badges for lanyards, and they're exquisite. So he made one that said, the White House, hello, my name is Bill. And I was, hello, my name is Monica. So he was Bill Clinton. One year he was Ronald Reagan, and I was the Berlin Wall.
We're not kidding.
No, we're not kidding. And God bless Tipster Lois for making my wall costume a reality. She is a costume designer for a local college, and she had the students work on. It was really detailed. She had them look up the actual graffiti that had been spray painted on the Berlin Wall in '89, and she had them paint it on a wall that had been a costume that had been used for the scene at the beginning of Not Much Ado About Nothing. I can't remember.
It was a Shakespeare play.
It's a Shakespearean play. I can't remember. Shit. Anyway, I wore that wall. Let's see. Last year I was Sloth and he was Greed. And I was actually in a sloth costume.
Yes, and the year before that...
he was Trump Tower, and I was a Wrecking Ball.
That was quite involved.
Mm-hmm. So he's been all over the board politically. I do tend to make you the political stance.
And I am a good husband.
You are. No, you're an amazing husband.
I do not share your political views on many things.
Not often. So yeah,
yes,
it worked out well. So we're going to roll out an alien thing for ufologists, which God I love.
Which will not involve politics, and this year is very hilarious.
And 4 people will get it, and yet it's okay. I don't care if we win this year. I just am delighted with the supplies I have found for our costuming. That's all I'm going to say.
They're exquisite. They're perfect.
Thank you, sir. I'm kind of excited. I do need an adult female alien costume, and not some bullshit that the Tip-Sters recommend that's like a green chick with 3 tits. I want a plain silver, large-eyed, small-mouthed, triangular-shaped head alien suit, not some, Captain Picard or William Shatner fantasy of an alien chick. I don't want that. I want something much more down and dirty. Stop it.
Maybe this is the year when we finally do go to Hollywood costume, whatever that place is called in Hollywood. Where everybody gets their all the people in L.A. It's the place that it's an actual studio supplier of costumes, and a lot of people rent in advance. So you probably have to go there now.
Yeah, probably am. Probably too late.
Get really good costumes.
Well, I'm gonna hope so. So this episode is something I'm just really excited about, and it just worked out really well. So August is Survivor Month on Just the Tip-Sters, and this is also the inaugural episode of Murder Nerd University. So if you listen to the podcast, you probably understand that I really am a murder nerd, and I like all of the details. It's not like I enjoy that people die, especially at the hands of another. But what I do love is finding out why someone would want that, what makes them tick, who, what happened to them, like who did this to them to make them awful, or maybe nothing happened to them. But also the method that they choose, why they do that, what was their thinking. And poisoning is a very unique, it's a rare thing nowadays, because you typically are going to get caught, as we find out with our fantastic guest, Dr. Jeff LaPointe. But it's just rare. There's, not to be rude, but there's, 50 ways to kill your lover kind of thing. So there's lots of ways to do it. And this is just not easy. It can be cheap, I guess, when we found out how Dr. Jeff was able to procure on the Russian market some poison that is outlawed in the United States for good reason. It's just interesting that this is the way this happened. So this case was so fascinating, and producer Mark and I, this just came together quickly. So like a week and a half ago, producer Mark and I were watching an episode of Dateline during dinner, and we both were just like, what? And it happened, not far from us, a little bit south of us in San Diego. And this beautiful young woman in her 20s, she's a special needs instructor at a elementary school. Her husband's a third-class ass fucker in the Navy. I don't think that's his actual non-commissioned whatever term.
I think we just gave away the murderer, or the attempted murderer, sorry.
Attempted, yes. That's the beautiful part about Survivor Month, is that Brigida is just an amazing creature. And I know while it's a tough time now, she's got something special that she will be sharing with the world, because she's something else. So this beautiful woman in her 20s, married to a man in his 20s. They'd been together 10 years, married 3 years. They met in high school. They're both very attractive, but she's beautiful inside and out. And her horrible husband, Race Udo, became uglier as the time went on. But they had this beautiful son, and she became very sick starting in September of 2017. And she kept going to different doctors. And her family, close family, parents still married, sister extremely involved in her life, so close to her family, in fact, that she and her husband and her son live across the street from her parents on their property. They have a large property, and they have a home on her parents' property. So it was just, it was puzzling how this beautiful, young, healthy woman, young mother, was getting sicker and sicker. And 3 times in 6 months, her husband, Ray Sudo, had poisoned her with a really nasty poison called thallium, which is, just to boil it down, no pun intended, it becomes rat poison. It's a rodenticide. And you'll hear Dr. LaPointe mention that it also can be a depilatory, because it makes you lose your hair, which is, for in the 20s, if you, wanted to remove your mustache or something, I guess. but then you could easily become accidentally poisoned, which is, happened. That's why, like farm animals, it was used, in barns, and accidentally, dogs or cats or other animals would find the thallium in its rat poisoning form and accidentally ingest it and die. So to give it to someone you're married to, someone you're supposed to love and cherish and honor, I'm not, bringing God into it, but someone you have made a pact, a promise to, involving your God or not. You have said, I will love and honor and cherish you, and you have a child with them. And then you don't just, punch them or strangle them or shoot them or stab them. You take months to research and investigate. And then more months, it turns out, trying to poison them, and it fails. And you find items, you research and find things on the black market. And you watch your spouse slowly die. Almost die, suffer and suffer and suffer. And poisoning presents itself as different things. And she was misdiagnosed many times, understood, because it could be so many different things. She was diagnosed with, potential cancer, lupus, all sorts of autoimmune disorders. And then her hair fell out and she could no longer walk. And she had trouble seeing, obvious neurological issues. And she went back and forth between a naval hospital because an officer and an asshole, not an officer and a gentleman, an officer and an asshole, he wasn't even an officer, an asshole and an asshole, third level assistant to the bilge water operator. He would take her back and forth between the naval hospital and a community hospital. And as luck would have it, somebody up there brought Dr. LaPointe and Brigida together. So Brigida her mother ends up taking her to this community hospital instead of the naval hospital. And lo and behold, a fantastic toxicologist happened to be on staff, and an ER doctor who recognized this ain't right and got with Dr. LaPointe and his team. And Dr. LaPointe is so humble. He's like, it takes, I'm the one that said it takes a village, but he's like, my team recognized there was a problem at first. And he's the expert. And he took over and kept her sequestered, kept her family away from her. And he didn't mind being the bad guy, kept her in the hospital for months. And it's a fascinating journey on what he had to go through, because thallium is, mostly used and threatened at this point as a chemical weapon, for political reasons. So it triggers alarms. If you happen to have seen the Dateline episode, you'll know what we're talking about. And it's really one of the more fascinating stories that I have ever heard. And he's such a joy to talk to. You can feel the love and the passion for what he does in his voice. And he's like, I don't do this. I don't do that. That's not my jam. This is what I'm interested in. And it just so happens to be toxicology and what it does to the body. And as he reiterates, his job is to keep someone alive who has been poisoned. It's an awful thing, but he's so magnificent, and he's such a well-rounded human being. He's a surfer. He hosted a podcast on toxicology. He taught me how to say the word cannabinoids, because I would have said cannabinoids until I died, but it's cannabinoids, anything with, CBD or THC, marijuana. And that's something he's also very interested in, is keeping people alive during an opioid epidemic, rave party drugs, how to detox someone from something like that they may have taken inadvertently or didn't know the amount they, could handle. But even more magnificent, he likes unicorns, and he is an enabler. And he sent me a link to a t-shirt on Amazon that I purchased.
There's more unicorn shit coming to my house.
It's just a shirt, but it's a magnificent shirt. He purchased one for himself and a member on his toxicology team that also likes unicorns. And I will have one too. So I'm hoping we can be triplets. And it's quite adorable. It's a beautiful little cartoon of a adorable little unicorn in a kitchen with cupcakes on a counter, and she has a piping icing bag in her hand, and it said, "I baked you some shut the fuck up cakes." So that's on its way from Amazon. Should be here today. I had wanted it to be. I can hardly wait, actually.
Shut the fuck cupcakes.
Yes, shut the fuck up cakes. Yeah, it's magnificent, and I cannot wait to wear it. I wish I could have worn it during the interview earlier, but it's in spirit. It's already here, and I will be wearing it. And I know you're gonna love hearing from Dr. LaPointe, because he really is a rock star. No matter what he says, he is a rock star. And speaking of rock stars, as you know, our episode is sponsored by Clean Spa Bath and Body by Jennifer Hardaway. And Jennifer makes a great selection of moisturizers, perfumes, massage oils, and a fantastic array of cleanses. And so in addition to the things that I love already, the bath syrups, the body washes, she also offers a delicious handmade bar of soap that she calls the Bar. And the Bar is sulfate-free glycerin soap that creates luxurious lather, and it's available in 18 unique pre-made scents. Or you can create your own specialty scent based on the dozens of natural fragrances that Jennifer has available. I am in love now with the Sweet Smoke scent. I have the Sweet Smoke scrub that I am using, and I just want to lick my own arm. And I still love all of the vanilla scented products, but the Sweet Smoke is so original and unique. And Jennifer is just an alchemist in how she creates what she does, and you're going to love everything that you order from her. So make sure you enter promo code Tip-Sters at the checkout to get 15% off of your total order. And remember that that's clean with a K, cleanspa.com. Clean Spa, prepare to smell delicious. All right, so I know you're going to enjoy this interview with Dr. Jeff LaPointe. So we're really blessed today to have on this episode Dr. Jeff LaPointe, who is my new boyfriend. He doesn't know it, but he comes in right underneath my new Instant Pot, Alec Baldwin, is Dr. Jeff LaPointe. So
how many new boyfriends do you have?
You just get an abacus. That's all I'm saying. So producer Mark and I were watching an episode of Dateline, and a lot of times they're semi-interesting, sometimes not. And we were both flabbergasted. We were sitting there watching and eating dinner, and both of us were kind of with our mouths open. So before I say anything else, I just want to say that episode was filled with, if you are a chick or a gay dude, that episode is filled with some of the most handsome men ever. And not to denigrate, physicians, detectives, etc., DAs even. What a handsome DA. Every dude and chicks. It's actually a smorgasbord of beautiful people. The victim is gorgeous, and she is a survivor, not a victim. Her family is beautiful. Dr. Jeff is handsome. The DA is handsome. The FBI dude, all handsome. And I have never stalked a physician on a form of social media before, but this is the man who made me join LinkedIn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You're worth it. You're worth it, brother. So yeah, I was on LinkedIn several years ago as my own name, because my ex-husband was being hounded by creditors, and I wanted to see what he was doing, since I haven't been married to him in 19 years, 20 years. So I was like, what do you, oh no, 30 years. Oh my God, that's heartbreaking. A long time. So I had stayed away from LinkedIn. I don't want one more form of social media. But when I tried to find you, that was the first thing that came up, and I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to join LinkedIn as the podcast, and I'm going to try and hound him until he talks to me. And you were so responsive and so kind right away, and you're so fascinating. I mean, like I said, producer Mark and I sat with our mouths open, and by the end of the episode, I was like, you aren't going to try to poison me, are you? I mean, it was so compelling and interesting, and I really hardly ever think of poisoning. I never think of toxicology. I don't think of this. So you brought this up in my head, and it has been the most fascinating journey, sort of researching over the last week, what I'm going to ask you what you do, and we want to talk about you before we get into the case, because what you do is so interesting, and you are an interesting dude, and it's a great story. So
now it's everywhere, right? You're looking it up, and now there's poison everywhere, right?
Well, once you
famous quote.
once you see
everything is poison and nothing is poison.
Yeah, once you see it, you don't think about it, but yeah, and especially something that I think is sort of old-timey. So let's just start with that. Typically, a small version of the case is a beautiful young mother, special ed teacher in the San Diego area, started to feel ill in September of 2017. And she had a toddler, 2-year-old son. I don't even know if he was 2 at the time. And what she thought was a happy marriage. And over the course of 5 or 6 months, things went downhill really fast. And to think of how powerful this poison could be, it only took 3 times, and it should have killed her. But that's another question I'll have for you, is what made her, other than you and your team finding out what's happening and helping her, I'm wondering what kept her alive and other people don't survive. Maybe it was her youth or her physical shape. She was in good shape. It's such a fascinating thing. But she had symptoms that could easily be mistaken for so many other things.
Right.
So many things. And from what I understand, her husband was in the Navy. So she went back and forth. I don't know if it was depending on the time or the geography, between naval hospitals and a community hospital, like 3 or 4 times. And by the time she got to the hospital where you are, she was in remarkably bad shape. Like, would you say days to live or weeks?
I mean, it's hard to give times. Like there are infinite amounts of variables and possibilities in the human body, and it's tough to give time. She was really, really sick.
Right.
The organs, end organs, were being affected.
Right.
And if she was not treated or removing the source of the poison, is a huge thing. I don't think that she would have been alive much longer.
And it was such an interesting description of someone who is very, very sick and becomes apathetic to being alive anymore.
Right.
Whether it's neurological things that are just shutting down. It's like, yeah, I don't care. I'm just going to go to sleep. Or whether it's physiological things where their body's shutting down and they can't process. I mean, I had never heard anyone describe someone in that way, and that made it even more interesting to me that someone who had every reason to live just didn't care anymore. Is that one of the offsets of what poisoning does to someone?
I mean, so the reason to choose this poison, I don't know if you want to talk about the specific one just yet. But
I do, whenever you want.
So thallium.
Yeah.
And thallium is a heavy metal. It's just an elemental metal. And so, thallium can be used, in many different ways. It was, discovered late 1850s, 1860s. Naturally, unless you're smelting copper or something goofy, you're not going to come into contact with thallium. But thallium, it was used medicinally as what we call a depilatory agent because it makes you lose your hair. So if you had lice in the 1920s and you were a child, you might have been given thallium, or gout, you could have been given thallium.
Wow. And
so, and then it was quickly, found in the 1930s that it was associated with some pretty nasty poisonings. And then, you got to think of different forms of thallium. So there's just a metal. You could get the metal, and this is what our attempted murderer did. He bought the actual whole element or metal.
Great.
So that's elemental thallium, or you could have the salt form, whether that's thallium sulfate or thallium acetate. And that's a really important part of the case because those are very, very, very well absorbed and very toxic very quickly. So in general, people that are poisoning someone, they want to, there's many different reasons. The Russians have the best models for this. They can poison you. Anyone could just shoot you, right? But they can poison you to send a message and disfigure you with dioxin. So they've done that, or you get that horrible acne. They could poison you to die over weeks, and they did that. Ricin, or? So yeah, they've done ricin too. They have some. If you really want to know style and like panache and poisoning, you go to the Russians because so I mean you can do a whole lecture for hours on they once a guy Georgy Markov. He was a dissident, and he went to London, maybe 1970s, 1980s. I have to check the dates. But they had a guy, supposedly, never confirmed, sneak up behind him with an umbrella. That was a firing mechanism that fired a small BB filled with ricin, which is from the castor bean plant. It has to be refined. And it looks like you die of like an infection, sepsis. You get a fever, and you just kind of waste away. Really hard to find. So they have poisoned all kinds of people, but thallium's kind of like on that spectrum because if you do it right, it's going to look like someone wilts away over time.
Right.
And just a general point about toxicology testing. You watch TV and you watch NCIS or you watch like whatever, and toxicology is a black box. You put a drop of blood in, and all the answers come out. But it doesn't work like that. Right. You have to ask the question. You have to say, is there X present? And then you do that by the constellation of like the circumstances, what the person's exposed to, what their clinical presentation is. So in a little way, I act like a detective like that.
Exactly.
And try to put those things together. So
that was one of the things I loved so much about the Dateline piece is hearing what you did and how. And you're very humble, and you're saying it wasn't you. It takes a village, and you have a team. You have a toxicology team. You're the director of the medical toxicology department of your hospital, and you have a team. And an ER doctor that Brigida saw first thought, hey, something isn't right here. So tell me what happened after that.
Yeah. So the question of to a medical, so I guess just to take a second, a medical toxicologist is a doctor who is board certified in the treatment of poisoned or envenomated patients, and that's what we are. There's about 500 of us in the United States. So a lot of people can be forensic toxicologists, or they can be pharmacists who are in toxicology. Like it's a little bit different than. So we care for poisoned patients. Once they die, I'm obviously much less useful. Because that's a whole different field, right? Like if you just to take a detour, just take a quick detour. If I'm Michael Jackson and you poison me with propofol and you kill me, well, after I die, you're going to find it in my stomach, and it's because things move differently in death. There's post-mortem redistribution, and that's a whole different specialty, and I don't do that.
Right.
So we specialize in taking care of people that
keeping
are
them,
in real time.
keeping them from being
visited
by the medical examiner. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, so you are. I mean, when producer Mark and I were watching the episode, I was like, this dude's like a modern day Sherlock Holmes, and I understand that that's what the medical field, a large part of it is, somebody being a correct diagnostician. But I mean, I found toxicology, for better or worse, so fascinating, and it felt to me like, not to be rude, but an old school way of ending someone's life. I just always felt, my brain works in a way where I'm like, oh, do you think there was an angel of death and somebody, injected an air bubble or, that sort of crap that, I mean, has happened. But to know that God bless her, she just happened to be at your hospital on the right day, and she got the right ER doctor who said to you, something doesn't look right here, and and then you go from there. Yeah. Because like you said, there are only 500 of you across the United States.
Right.
So it was like, I just don't believe anything happens, for no reason. I believe there was a reason that she got to you, whether it's that she has I don't want to get too like spiritual, but like a bigger plan in her life, whether it's to be around for her son, even though I'm sure her sister and mother and father would have done a wonderful, God forbid, wonderful job of raising him if she hadn't made it. But there's a reason, I don't care if it's the roll of the dice, however you look at it. There's a reason that you two, in your team and she got together, because she's supposed to be here.
So it really was a miracle that she showed up with that particular doctor on duty. Can you kind of describe what this doctor told you or how you were approached about it?
Yeah, just basically and really he is the true hero of the case. Besides Brigida, fighting through this. But he just said it's not right. Like he just had a feeling in his jellies that said, like, look, could this be poison? And that, that tells us that our service hasn't been around for a while, of the longest time since, like, I started doing it, like, on a volunteer basis, just hanging up a shingle and saying, call me maybe, in 2012. And so usually you start getting called for, like, hey, this guy got bit by a snake, or this lady took this to harm herself, or whatever. And the most mature part of that service is where someone goes, look, I don't know, could this be?
Right.
And so, thankfully we were there, and thankfully we had a physician who did a rotation where I trained at NYU, and he's like, look, I don't know what this is, but could this be? And that's really what it took.
So was he focused then enough to say, this isn't lupus, or this isn't, some other autoimmune, could this be thallium? Or did he have is there like a series of poisons that could have presented in the same way?
There's a couple weird things, like maybe like selenium or some other stuff. But no, he was just like, this is not right.
Okay, so he knew it was a poisoning of some sort.
And he knows that we geek out pretty hard. Like, we have a lot of fun with what we call tox, not tox. Like, I'll get a consult and be like, actually, this is hyperthyroid. Like, this is not cocaine.
Wow.
This is hyperthyroid. So we kind of geek out at that level. When I work in the emergency department, sometimes I'm more of a hammer, and then in this role, I'm more of like a really annoying scalpel.
An amazing scalpel who has a wealth of knowledge and knows where to go. So I thought I'd start a new game show. Let's talk poison.
Yay.
So thallium, I mean, the little bit of research I've done, thallium is something, it's an old school, it became, like you'd mentioned, something to a depilatory in the 20s if you had, a lice infestation or something. At this moment, it's banned for sale, at least in California, maybe across the U.S. I don't know, but it was used in rat poisoning. It was a rodenticide. Yeah. And so you could still find it accidentally in old, like, abandoned barns. Like, I don't know if it's how they would put it, like a box of thallium to kill a rat or something.
Well, that's the salt form, right? It'd just be a powder. It's tasteless, odorless.
Right.
I mean, it's iocane powder,
Right. So, if someone accidentally, there were probably, as you mentioned, accidental poisonings from its use incorrectly or too much, probably. Yeah. If you touched this rat poison, you get residue on your skin, you could get sick, or, if it's absorbed, and it sort of stays, as you mentioned, not even just in death, but it starts as like gastrointestinal. Yeah, so there'll be phases of it. So, important, like you said, two forms. Elemental, like elemental is really an inelegant form of poisoning. It's going to be poorly absorbed, and you're not going to get that much per how you put in. But the salt is very efficient. And so in the first couple of days and hours would be a gastrointestinal, so nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. And then, if you go from that to days, you could go through like a cardiovascular phase where like your heart rate might increase. And so if the dose is big enough, you die there. Wow. And then after that, you proceed to kind of like end organ type stuff. Right. And so whether that's neurologic, whether that's, visual problems, whether that's your hair falling out or your nerves in your hands and feet hurt so bad that you can't walk or you don't want to touch anything. Right. Or anything touches you, it hurts. Right. So are there other poisons that would present similarly? Like one of the things, that was like sort of a catchphrase in the Dateline episode was, cancer doesn't make your hair fall out. So I know that was one of the symptoms of thallium is hair loss. Yeah. Are there other, would you look at Brigida's case file and be like, oh shit, let's start testing for thallium? Or were there other things? That was how it went, sort of? Well, everything's got a toxidrome, like a toxicologic syndrome. And I can give you 100 of them, right? But if you tell me that a young person lost their hair after maybe some like vague gastrointestinal thing, right, and now can't walk because it hurts too bad, and that's called painful peripheral neuropathy. That's the only thing, right? So that, I can make you lose your hair,
I could just give you chemotherapy, and I could give you colchicine. We could go down, maybe in some cases arsenic, but nothing really has that. Plus the painful peripheral neuropathy part. That kind of, it's been described. One guy had called 911 or something. This was years ago. His wife had poisoned him in New York, and on the 911 call, he says it hurts so bad. He's driving and he can't push the brake because it hurts so bad.
Now that's really fascinating for a lot of reasons, and you really are not only a physician but a detective. So what you said was a guy whose wife had tried to poison him. So poisoners are typically women. It's like they don't like the direct approach where men prefer like, I'm just going to shoot you. And I don't know if it means women are a little more cruel but like they, over time, that's, or maybe they think it's less easy to solve, maybe because they don't expect Dr. Jeff on the case and his team. But I know you can't answer this, maybe it's hypothetical, but what the fuck is wrong with Ray Sudo? Like how did he get...
Getting in their hour.
How did he get the metal form of thallium? How did he have access to it?
You can, there's just like clubs that collect elements.
Okay.
Much to my wife's dismay, I ordered a couple grams of the stuff the same way he did to prove he could do it like that.
Wow.
And Eastern Europe, eBay, I had 10 grams of thallium for like $15 on my doorstep.
Are you kidding?
Oh my God! Is it legal to do that?
Yeah, just to have the element thallium. Yeah. Now, thallium acetate or thallium sulfate would be illegal to purchase because that's the rodenticide form.
Right, that's the part that was outlawed. But there's two, like he explained, there's the thallium salt and the metal form, which I guess you have to grind down.
Yeah, and that's so the whole point of this, like why poison someone, and the poisoning, depending what you use. Like if you killed me with cyanide, there's only 2 or 3 things that are drop down poison. So I'm going to die quick.
Right.
Right, and so like just when I think, okay, we have a knockdown poison, I got a list of 4 things, and I'm going to go chase those, right?
Right.
And they're probably going to be an ME case. Like the
right.
test for
By
cyanide
then.
poisoning is generally like, are you alive?
Sure.
All right, probably not fine. So, this what you want is that, and like, look, there's no real good way to get away with poisoning anymore.
Good.
Like to kill someone slowly, there are many great ways, but to get away with it, if you really think you can get away with it, I would challenge most people to think again. Like I get asked by novelists and by like just people at parties, what's the perfect poison? I just say time.
Right.
Because that's going to get everybody, right?
Yeah.
But like if you think that you can poison someone, you can get away, like you probably can't. In 1920,
right.
In 1930, there was no test for thallium.
Right.
And it would never be found. There was no forensic test for it. And now it's a really easy test. And all they'll have to do is burn some of your tissue, and it'll turn green under a certain reagent, and you will be popped. So there's no great way. But this is basically, this attempt is one, but what you ask, what's wrong with this guy? This guy thinks he's smarter than everyone else.
Okay.
Okay, so we have there's probably some pathology, psychopathology or narcissism, but whatever, that's not my bag.
Right.
So what his goal is to have a medical mystery to make it look like this person wasted away to collect some form of insurance money for that.
Okay.
And then to move on with his life and to get away with it.
Right.
And that's just not a thing. But the amount of cruelty. So you can all think you're married, you have a relationship, you have friends, you have coworkers, whatever. There's a lot of people that piss you off, or the people closest to you involve or evoke really passionate responses. So you've said things to people, and then another step up, God forbid someone uses violence or they hit someone, and it's a one-time thing. And even a lot of those people, those horrible people, go, "Oh shit, I wish I didn't do that." Right. Okay, but imagine doing that on a little bit every single day and watching what happens, and doing it again. And doing again, most people, most normal human beings, even if they were driven to the point of temporary ridiculousness where they tried to poison someone and they got sick, they'd be like, holy shit, I'll never do this again. Oh my God, I can't, oh my God. But to deliberately do it again.
Yeah, but if you're a psychopath, right, yeah.
And again. And again, it's just a special brand of evil to be able to do that.
Exactly.
Right.
And
so,
it took, the months and months of her suffering, and the thing that she said in her victim impact statement, how could you do this to the mother of your child?
Right.
And obviously, he's not thinking of his child or her. He's only thinking of himself. And I didn't even know the insurance part. All I thought was the cheating part, because it was brought out in the Dateline episode that he had not only one but two girlfriends.
Right.
And one he was a little more open with and said, I want to kill my wife, or I want her to die somehow. And one he just had told her, I think, that he was either separated or divorced, or his wife was dead, and his son spent so much time with her he called her mommy.
Yeah.
That's the part that kind of cracked my heart in half. And I know he'll learn, at some point when he's old enough what happened. But at least he has his mom, his grandparents, his aunt that are supportive around him. That's the other thing that was so odd to me about this case, besides the fact finding out that most poisoners are women. Men prefer something a little more quick and direct, although I think it does take a special kind of asshole to want someone to suffer for months. And to know that, there's like a 30-day top half-life for thallium. So he tries to poison her with like 1 microgram or milligram, gram, and then 5, and then finally 8, which should have been lethal. She should have died.
That's a lot. And half-lives are tricky things. Like, half-lives, especially in the human body, are like if you're taking like ibuprofen, you take acetaminophen, we have a calculated half-life. But those are all calculated like normal dose in a normal person on no other medications with normally functioning organs. So it's super mega doses, and then the weird thing is, so just as an aside, I thought when we first got this case and he gave me a really weird feeling, and I'm not in the police business. Like it's not my job who did this or why they did it or to link them to the crime. It's my job just to make sure this woman lives and has a good outcome. And but I it's almost always the husband or the boyfriend or the girlfriend or whatever. It's always someone really close, right? So I'm thinking, man, this guy's a criminal mastermind, because if he's using the salt in order not to kill her, he would have to have the dosing so perfect that he is skilled in some kind of pharmacology or stoichiometry or chemistry, that he's really, really sharp. Well, it turns out he was not.
He's a jackass, and he lied and said he was like a Navy SEAL. And
it's like dumb, but he was using elemental thallium, and it's just like he was just putting so much in, and probably only very small percentage of that stuff actually got absorbed. But it was, and as you keep upping the dose like that. And that's when there's a point on the show where we're looking at the CT, and you can see, like a CAT scan of someone's abdomen, which is like many little X-rays.
Right.
You can see metal in her digestive tract, and I'm like, oh god,
So it was reforming itself as metal?
No, it was he just shaved off metal. He just
for fuck's sake, no kidding.
Well said. Yeah, and so he would just shave off the metal and put it in her stuff, and then she's getting poisoned. She's like, I think the blender broke. There's something in here. Or he's she said, there's metal in the smoothie. He's like, oh yeah, it's probably just a problem with the blender. And everyone's like, ship. And then,
my God.
I can't believe that.
Right. I couldn't either.
Good Lord.
I mean, yeah. I did. Okay, so I know you can say that you're not, you're not a cop and this isn't your thing, but it kind of is. That you're a detective that is really needed in this world for people like that. I mean, that's it could have been so easily passed off, and apparently was, as other things in the 5 or 6 months that she suffered. She obviously, you were not, or the first person in your team, the ER doc at your team, was not the first person she had seen. She had obviously, and no offense to any of the other physicians she saw, but it takes a specialized kind of person. God bless your ER doc friend who knew to call you. I need some help here because could it possibly be this? It's presenting as this. It's so fascinating. So mentioning the green, if you burn some of the tissue, apparently it can be found in green fireworks.
Yeah, it's a great way to make things. Yeah, copper can make things blue.
Okay.
And different all sorts of different elements are put into fireworks to make things different, beautiful colors.
Okay, so speaking of colors, yeah, I used to actually date a fireworks maker. One of the
That's cool.
Yeah, back in the Midwest, his family, Italian family, brought everything over in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and built all these separate, talking about the green fireworks, all these separate outbuildings to mix the chemicals to make the colors, because if you put too much together, everything goes boom. So you have to do it step at a time. So speaking of colors, I don't understand, and I can't wait to hear, how the fuck does Prussian blue come up, and how does it help eliminate thallium from the body?
Yeah. So, Prussian blue is a dye made by mistake. Someone was trying to make a red, I believe,
Wow.
in the 1800s, and it wasn't until the 1900s that they saw that it can cause the movement of positively charged elements, or cations, can make them move.
Wow.
And so just to get this straight, there is no antidote for thallium.
Okay.
Right? So there's nothing that, like, an antidote is something that directly counteracts
Right.
what is happening. There's nothing that directly counteracts the effects, but there's something that helps you eliminate it.
Okay.
Right? And so Prussian blue can help. There's all, like, these blood vessels going against, around the guts, right? Around your intestinal tract.
Right.
And there is some exchange. So sometimes even things that are injected into your vein, I can pull out through your GI tract.
Okay.
From your blood.
Okay.
Right? So there's a recirculation that happens there. So we're taking advantage of some chemical properties and some properties of Prussian blue. That is a dye that is FDA approved since the, late 1990s, early 2000s for thallium toxicity. It's also, and this becomes a really important part of this case in terms of my life, what happened to me, is that it is also something that would be used for a dirty bomb. So a dirty bomb would have something like a radioactive element like cesium. Same thing in a CAT scanner that will use cesium to get the x-rays or whatever. And if you put an explosive and had cesium in it, you would use Prussian blue to help pull some of that chemical out. And so that's why it is protected and guarded in government storage areas in case of a terrorist attack.
Right.
So when you request Prussian blue, and the FBI, CDC, NCIS, and anyone else I can think of come down on you like a fucking anvil.
Right. What's happening? Why do you need this?
Yeah. I'm just getting in my car, like, go pick up my kids. And it's like, this is so-and-so from the FBI. Do you have a moment? I'm like, oh, man. Is this about high school?
I didn't mean to.
Right. No, she's like, don't say anything. So, that's kind of, that increases the pucker factor of your life to a 10. It's a logarithmic scale, right? Full clench.
Yeah, I would imagine. I could probably hear your ass slamming shut all the way up here. Like,
you just hear the clicking. Yeah. It's like medical students taking a test. What's the clicking? Oh, that's what it is.
That's your boy, you have really good sphincter muscles, sir. Let me just say that right off the bat, because I don't know that you could hear mine.
It tickles. You really got to get on it. Yeah.
Is that what happened? Okay, that's good. I'm glad. Yeah. So so is it like dialysis for the gastrointestinal?
I know. It's like, so there's different ways to deal with a poison, right? There is, you can keep it from being absorbed. So you give me, a bunch of, let's say something, colchicine. So colchicine is a medication used from gout. It's from certain flowers. Meadow saffron or autumn crocus have colchicine, really primitive chemotherapy.
Yeah.
It will kill me by making my immune system. I won't make any white blood cells.
Okay.
So, but there's no antidote. They used to make one. They don't have one anymore. So I might give you activated charcoal in your gut while you still have the pills there. Maybe it's early on. Maybe I might even do the old school pump your stomach.
Okay.
So I can keep it from being absorbed, so activated charcoal or GI decontamination.
Right.
And then I can, if I have an antidote, I can use that. And then there's enhanced elimination. So I can take advantage of stuff like, I know this is going to come out through the gut. What will grab it in the gut? Will charcoal do it? I keep giving you more charcoal. Is there an agent like Prussian blue or something like that I can use? Or if it's in the blood, can I use like basically a pool filter or whatever for your blood called dialysis? And I can suck it out. Now, that in order for dialysis to work, it has to be in the blood. And so toxins have distribution. And so some of them stay in the blood, right? So antifreeze, I can grab that really well, right?
Right.
But Valium distributes to your entire body. Water. It goes everywhere. It looks like potassium. Your heart happily takes it up. All the tissues take it up. Yay, look, it's potassium. So she had such a high burden of it that it leaked back. Like think of you had like a sump pump or you had like a bilge pump like in a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you turn it on, nothing's going to happen because there's no water there. The water has to overflow from the sink or the toilet or whatever so you can grab it.
Okay.
She had so much in her body that it went backwards from the tissue into the blood.
Wow.
And then I can pull it out.
Wow. So, I mean, you can say all you want that you're not a detective, but you are at heart, whether you know it or not. And one of the things I thought you did that was so brilliant, and I don't know if it was you or your team decided together, but a lot of times when someone is admitted to the hospital with something that's undistinguishable at the moment, you or someone on your team immediately made the decision to sequester her.
Yeah, that was me.
That was you.
I was the villain. I was the villain for.
I knew it was you.
I was the villain.
No, you were the hero.
Kind of to the family at first because I'm the jerk, because I'm like she had gifts. Everyone brought food.
Of course.
There's all this thing in the room, and I'm like, all of it out.
That's
now.
right.
And then we admitted the husband and the child to another hospital, our other hospital, so that I could keep an eye on them and test them. And now I talk to law enforcement. Is this kid safe?
Wow.
Right? Like, so all those things that I don't know anything about, like that's not my level, my area of expertise. So.
But kind of.
No, I mean those are all details that. Okay, it's nice to think about, but I don't know how to get them done. I need a whole team of people to be like, okay, how do we assess this? And that happened.
I love that you are so generous in giving, props to your team. And you're right. It does take a village. Nobody, is an island unto themselves, and especially with a really creepy, overwhelming medical mystery. But I will be honest, I don't know how many doctors, ER doctors, or even toxicology specialists who would have sequestered her like, that's it, nobody gets in. Because how many times have we heard, whether it's Munchausen or Munchausen by proxy or whatever, someone comes in and re-poisons someone under the guise of, I want to be here with my loved one.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah,
of course it happens. And I don't know if it's, you don't seem like the kind of guy who's like, all humanity is awful, but you just seem like the kind of guy that's like, I'm going to cross every T and dot every I, and that's the dudes that get shit done.
I mean, hopefully that's all of us, but like, I don't have to be their friend. I don't have to be right. I have to be safe.
Right.
And I don't, you know what I mean? It's not predicated on anyone liking me. I wouldn't get very far.
Right. And there'd probably be a lot of people that weren't still alive if you had to make everyone like you. I get that. That's like a good point. I understand that. And it's great that you're brave enough to not be a people pleaser. And then you're by outset, you're a people saver because you don't have to make everyone happy. You just need to find the answer and get this, save this person's life.
Right.
So Brigida is now going by her maiden name, which who can blame her, because who the hell wants to keep that name? And sometimes if you have a child, you keep that name so that your child feels like you're sharing a name. But it's like Tina Turner. All she wants is her name back. Fuck it. Get her name back. And that's who wants to call her, Mrs. Udo, because he doesn't deserve to allow her, he doesn't deserve for her to have that name. She deserves to have her own name. So what do you think of... do you really think it was as rudimentary as Race Udo looking up the Poisoner's Handbook?
It's a great book, by the way, but just remember, it's a historical book.
Right.
It tells the story of the beginning of forensic toxicology or criminology in New York City in the 1920s and 30s. So if you get an idea from there, it's not going to work out.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I don't know. He tried other poisons.
He did.
He tried something from the suicide tree, which is kind of...
like white oleander or something?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, whether it's Lilia Valley, that's convalatoxin, or foxglove, digitoxin.
Shit.
There's hundreds of those that you could... they're in our environment, and so they cause... So if you told me this patient came in with nausea and vomiting and had a high potassium and a weird heart rate or weird rhythm, I'm like, oh my God, this is a cardiac glycoside. Like, we gotta, let's go this way, right? So those are all the hints to me that like, wait, and I can test for that kind of in real time, although it's not very elegant, it's a little bit of approximation, but and I have antidotes. I have actually things that bind those poisons. So, but yeah, he tried that, and it didn't really work out.
Wow.
And that's a pretty quick one, because I can solve that in the ER. As long as my team is consulted, I can be like, wait, or tell you that it can't.
Did he admit to that, or you found it in her cells and her?
No, he admitted to it. So he tried that, and then they found, he was trying to make ricin. So.
Out of castor beans, he was trying to make ricin.
Right,
Okay, good.
And that's no joke. Like that's like Heisenberg level. Like you need to be
shit.
Exactly. He probably just finished binging on on Breaking Bad.
Right. And convalitoxin, the lily of the valley, is used in that show as well. So it's kind of a cool poison show. And so is phosgene gas. There's some cool stuff. But anyways, he had tried something like that. He was trying to make ricin, and ricin is, while it's a really nasty toxin that inhibits your ability to make protein, it is really poor toxin orally.
Really?
So you need to inhale it or inject it in some way. And then, in that show, that lady dies because they feed it with stevia, right?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't happen like that. She'd probably just have some explosive diarrhea or something. It's pretty inefficient, unless in massive amounts. So he was trying to make that, and then ricin has a cousin called abrin from rosary peas, and he had rosary peas everywhere, and he had solvents in his trunk.
Wow.
And so he had fashioned himself as kind of a poison geek.
The Heisenberg of the San Diego area.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Not so much.
Wow. I am still, I know this, as you say, is not your jam, but I am still fascinated by what sort of a brain takes the time and effort to do all of this, to investigate it, to read it. It's got to be a special kind of asshole. But then to watch another human being that you have, asked to marry you, and you're both young, you've met at a young age, and I would normally say, and no victim shaming here, but I would normally say if someone marries someone who's going to poison them, there may be something off with your picker, like your picker's broken. But Brigida comes from a family, her parents are still married. They're loving and in love with each other, and in love with their daughter and daughters, and treated him like a son.
Right.
They lived on the property with her parents in a separate house, but across the street. I mean, I would think, what happened. And Brigida's beautiful. Yeah. It was like, she's a fucking special ed teacher. I mean, heart of gold.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the lasting ramifications of what is going on with her has given her more compassion for dealing with, special needs children. I mean, because she's still suffering. So tell me two things. Tell me, how the fuck do you get the Prussian blue into her body? And tell me how she's, doing now, and what is gonna, maybe a time frame of how long it takes to get out of her body, and will she recover completely?
Yeah. So those are all good questions. So, so Prussian blue is oral only.
Okay.
You have to take it by mouth, and so it's a lot. It was 20. It's like 20 pills, plus a day.
Does it turn you blue?
No, it doesn't turn. It doesn't turn you blue at all. Thankfully, that'd be a bummer. There are some things that do turn you blue, but that's not one of them.
Right.
So we had to, and I think that's from our point of view, that's a super interesting part of the story, because once you make the diagnosis, actually, for us, pretty easy to make. But one, the test took a long time to come back, so that I'm on the phone, trying to get those back. I can't convince anyone to release the Prussian blue to me until I have the test.
Right.
I can't convince a nephrologist to do dialysis until I have the results.
Okay.
So there are probably only 30 published cases on how to manage these people when they're sick, and she had some of the, we're writing this up, but she had some of the highest blood levels ever reported.
Right.
So, you're kind of flying blind, because there's no textbook chapter, there's no medical literature to fully help you. But so she gets the medication orally. And then, I think a big part was that she had so much in her blood that doing the dialysis was really key. And I kept her in the hospital like forever,
Right.
like many months, and they were like, well, people were asking, well, can't she go? Because she wanted to go home. She was sick of me.
Of course.
She was going stir crazy one day. I was like, I'm so sorry, but I don't want to be the person writing a report on how to manage thallium patient poisoning as an outpatient.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's not what I'm going to roll with. But so, we kept giving her that. We measured her. So what you do is you take urine from someone for 24 hours. They collect all their urine. And then that's like a really great way of estimating the body burden.
Ah.
Not just what's in the blood, right?
Right.
So we got her to 0, right? So
Wow.
it's gone. Hopefully it's gone. There might be some that was deposited in tissues that leached back out, but I don't think so. And anytime that you injure nerves, and that's what she did, she injured the nerves for sensation and stuff, and she injured her eyes. You just never know.
Right.
And so what's remarkable about her is that, one, she didn't die.
Right.
That's a good one. 2, that she was able to make the recovery that she's made. A lot of these people don't walk again.
Oh,
a lot of these people never have hair again.
Oh my God.
A lot of these people might not be able to see again.
Wow.
So the fact that you can. I mean, the last time I saw her in clinic, I walked right by her. I didn't recognize her. And she was like, Dr. LeBlanc. I was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, it's Brigida. So, I hope that I think she's probably like 98% her.
Awesome.
And so that other 2%, like that's where the graph gets real steep, right? You like kind of plot that out. Like that's I don't know what if she's ever going to be fully
100%.
herself. And that's easy for me to say, right? Because I feel like 100% me. But that,
Right.
Can you imagine like that
No.
little bit? Your foot always tingles.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
What's interesting about what I just heard is, and why you're different. I mean, you're different because the whole thing about you insisting, no, you're going to stay in the hospital.
Right.
You're going to stay where I can keep an eye on you.
Right.
In effect, she was a laboratory. I don't know if the
Specimen.
word is. She was a specimen. You were doing something. You were making sure not only that you fixed her, but you were doing something for science. You are a scientist here. You were not. And while you are compassionate, as compassionate, probably more compassionate than most doctors, you did not fall prey to the, oh my God, I feel bad for her. She needs to go home to her family. Maybe we can do this on an outpatient basis. You insisted that this was something that needed to be done under essentially laboratory conditions.
For the future.
Right. Am I misstating that?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. The reporting of it, okay, that's good. I think it's important to have out there. And it's really every case, every bit of data that suggests, okay, and there are guidelines. There's an organization called X-Trip, and they produce guidelines on when to do dialysis for these patients, right? But so the data points are so. I mean, you think about maybe a certain phenomenon will be seen in 1 out of 100 people, right? Well, we have a sample size of 30 that's published. So maybe there's something unexpected. Maybe there's something that no one is anticipating that's going to happen in front of me. And if it's going to happen, I need it to happen in a safe place where I'm monitoring her.
Right.
Rather than follow up in poisoning clinic 3 weeks later. That's not cool. So, the science part of it, but I don't know what's going to happen. Even if she said, look, you can't publish this, or you can never tell this story, or whatever, that's fine. But one of the most important things in medicine is putting your knowledge into safe buckets. And there are safe buckets I know this. I know what's going to happen. I know this. And the other safe bucket is I know I don't know.
Right.
And you just have to suck it up and say, I don't know everything. I don't know. And the dangerous buckets are, I think I know this, but I don't.
Right.
Or I don't know this.
Right.
Right.
I don't know that I don't know. That's great.
I don't know that I don't know.
Right.
That's a disaster. But that's called malpractice. That's dangerous.
Ego. Yeah, that's called ego. Yeah.
So I have to admit that I don't know, and I'm going to proceed in the most cautious way. And if that costs more money, putting someone in, if that costs the organization more, I don't care.
Right.
We've gotten her to this point. I have to make sure. And then once there was a certain point where I was like, oh, okay, it's almost undetectable. It's decimal points off of detectable. Okay, I get it.
But it's somebody special who sees the macro. You see the big picture, and you also are skilled in finding the micro, which is so fascinating that you have that kind of double, for lack of a better word, double vision. You can see the big picture, how it's important to keep, every testing done in a place that it can be observed, and she's not going home and you don't know what's happening or what she's, ingesting or who's around her, but she's where she is and she's getting better. And yeah, that's I think one of the more fascinating parts of your psyche and your brain. So this may be an odd question, but hey, Dr. Lapointe, what's new in toxicology?
What's new in toxicology? Toxicology has been dominated by the opioid epidemic, obviously. That is the greatest epidemic in our lifetimes. It kills, more people than guns and cars.
Wow.
So that epidemic has dominated things and has been kind of the biggest thing. That's kind of like a macro public health thing, and I don't think that the science of it is necessarily new. Like, dealing with it and how to wrap our heads around the problem is huge. I generally study like really weird drugs of abuse. So, whether it's laboratory chemicals that are unregulated and now, you can buy them in a head shop as potpourri or plant food or some stupid thing. But just as a point, just a tip, if you're ever buying something that says plant food and it says how to dose a 70-kilogram plant, be very suspicious. Because we see that. That's the bath salt phenomenon, which are just synthetic amphetamines or designer amphetamines,
right.
Or spice, stuff like that is synthetic cannabinoids, and that's kind of what I study, like rave drugs and stuff
right.
like that.
Which, by the way, I do a tip of the hat to you. The listeners may be interested in. There are some back episodes of a podcast that Dr. Jeff co-hosted, and I found it fascinating. But you are responsible for me not saying cannabinoid or not saying cannabidoids for the rest of my life. So it's cannabinoids, which I wouldn't have known until I heard you. And you have a great voice. I hope at some point you'll consider either revamping the podcast or doing a different form, because that's one of the things producer Mark will tell you. As we were sitting there watching the Dateline episode, I'm like, every human being in the show is beautiful, and that guy has a beautiful voice, and I'm much more auditory than visual. And producer Mark said, every person on this show looks like they're from Central Casting on what you would want for a homicide documentary.
Like a reality show,
like
homicide.
A reality show.
You all
like
look
you were casted.
Yeah, you look like you were cast in that.
Because you're also gorgeous.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's the whole San
it,
Diego thing, though.
I'm watching it. I was like, well, there's a face for podcasts. Let's just
stop it.
I'm like, can they get like Nathan Fillion to play me or something? Like, I don't know. Like, we'll find someone.
Stop it right now. Stop it right now. Yes, you're very handsome. So is the DA, and that FBI guy had the most like Incredible Hulk eyes. His eyes are like light blue laser beams. So before we let you go, I want to know what the process was like when you're like, look, I have this patient. She's presenting with this. Can I have some Prussian blue? And then the FBI calls you. What happens? What do they do? What do they ask you?
Well, yeah, the first thing you do is, you make sure you have a free open line and a clean set of drawers. Because really, like, he's, his department is not necessarily interested in poisoning. They're interested in weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
So are we dealing with a dirty bomb situation? Are we dealing with, thallium can be radioactive. It was used medically for stress tests. There used to be thallium stress tests.
So, doctor, where are you storing the bomb?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
do you have
really
bomb juice on your hands? Can I test your hands?
So, yeah, I mean, yeah. So they're, and they were very nice. They're very, one of the things that I learned, and then one of the overlaps, like in the Venn diagram between like law enforcement and emergency medicine or toxicology, is you're trying to get information from someone, and you're trying to do so in a way that's easy and conversational, and it's not like Batman. It's not like, where is it? It's not like that. It's just tell me, it's cool, man. No, I'm not the cops. Just tell me. I'm not like the heroin police. Just tell me what's up. So the way that they were able to, everyone who I talked to was very easy to talk to. And I saw them talk to Brigida. I was like, taking notes. I'm like, wow, that's a wonderful way to get some information. But so there's two things happening in parallel. There's me trying to get this antidote, whatever, chelator. And then there's everyone asking me why, right? Why do you need this, right? What do you think's going on? And the why is like actually pretty easy. But there are, the president was in town to look at the Goosey Wall or whatever. And once I said Prussian blue, and people start thinking dirty bomb, and then there's political figures involved.
The timing.
That's why it didn't help me get it any faster.
Right.
It actually took up several hours every day between public health, the CDC, the FBI, local law enforcement. That's not part of the case, right? That's just a safeguard in effect, like in play. And they didn't help me get it. They can't help me get it. Like I'm starting to ask around, and thankfully we found people who would let us have some of their storage.
And that was in Los Angeles?
Yeah, it was in LA.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, seriously.
No, it's an amazing story. The Dateline episode is amazing, and I am so honored that you took the time to be with us today, because I know you have a busy schedule, even if you are going surfing later. But we just adore you with every fiber in our beings, and if we want you to come back as part of Murder Nerd University, would you consider that?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome sauce.
Absolutely.
We adore you, Dr. Jeff. Thank you for being here, and thank you for saving Brigida's life, and thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, and I know that my team was really excited to. We hope you never see another one. I could live 2 lifetimes and not see another Thallium and be very happy, because it's very sad.
Exactly.
But, I've gotten a lot of phone calls and emails about people who aren't alive. And how to crack a case. And I'm like, that's not what I do.
Yeah,
so,
but kinda.
Yeah, but living people, good with living.
Yeah, good with the living. If you got a living person, I might be able to help you. But yeah. Thank you for everything, Dr. Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a great time.
Our joy. Thank you again to Dr. Jeff LaPointe for being our guest, and we will wrangle him into other episodes of Murder Nerd University, because he's such an amazing resource. I know we're going to have other fantastic reasons to interview him, and if not, we'll make them up. And more cowbell.
And remember, if you'd like to become a patron of the podcast, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters. And if you got a tip, give us a call at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. Or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com.